Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of The Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today, all the way from Utah, Massachusetts, is Charlie Cook of Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Don't try to look that up on Google Maps. I did. They can't find it. So
they can't find it, and that's right where I'm at.
Charlie, thanks for coming along today, man.
Happy to, man. Happy to. Always good to be on with you.
As we get started here, I'm getting social media hooked up, and I want to remind everybody as we get started, if you want to comment on the live video, if you're catching us on the Polite Society podcast feeds, you can comment on either the live Facebook or live YouTube video. We'll get your comments on the air. If you're catching us anywhere else, if you're catching us on OpsLens app or anywhere else that carries us live, you can go to Twitter and tweet with the hashtag #TheBullet, and we'll get those comments as well. Get you up on the get your comments up on the air, and we'll discuss them live. Charlie, first story I want to talk about is one that came out by our good friend John Petrolino, and hit Bearing Arms today. He wrote about the new New Jersey version of the Concealed Carry Improvement Act that went through in New York and is basically in the middle of a bunch of lawsuits and in the process of being ruled unconstitutional on a number of grounds. It looks to me like New Jersey just copied and pasted and called it New Jersey's new carry law.
It sounds to me like they took the New York laws and said, how can we make this worse? And that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, the only thing in New Jersey that I don't see them copying is, so far in New Jersey, you don't have to hand over 3 years of social media accounts to whoever you turn your application for a concealed carry permit into. That's the only thing they haven't copied yet. I suppose I maybe shouldn't have even said that on the air, because that might give them ideas.
Exactly. Let's not give them ideas. As if everything else, all this other nonsense, isn't going to be enough. They haven't started asking for social media.
Yeah. I'm going to go through, and I'm going to try to keep. And Charlie will never let me forget this. When we did initially talk about the New York carry law, I listed all the prohibited places and left Charlie's face as the only one on the air as I was looking away and not looking at the screen.
7 minutes.
Yes. It took me 7 minutes to get through the entire list of prohibited places. But let me give you some of the...
I was thinking you were actually going to do that again today. And I'm like, okay, how do I handle it if he does this to me today?
Honestly, if I were you, I would have made strange faces at the camera. I would have written up signs that said help or something like that. Anyway, these are some of the egregious things that are in the New Jersey law. Ban carry in common public places by labeling them as sensitive places. Ban carry inside one's own car. Ban carry on commercial and private property unless the property owner posts notices allowing it. It's going to massively increase fees for permits. Mandate special insurance. Mandate new and unusual training requirement beyond the already difficult one that has existed for decades. And Petrolino writes, when discussing the sensitive places the bill defines, the sponsor of the Assembly version, Assemblyman Joe Danielson, could not answer during committee meetings the direct question of where can people carry under these guidelines. Danielson, because the bill is, in my opinion, the second biggest jerk in politics in the Garden State, refused to give a list of where one would be allowed to exercise their right to carry. The reason he did not give an answer is because under this policy, essentially, there's nowhere people can carry. And then he goes on to say other things that could be banned following the reasoning in this new concealed carry law in New Jersey. Using the same reasoning they're banning guns, they could ban knives in restaurants, scalpels in hospitals, and utility knives pretty much anywhere. They could ban axes, hammers, screwdrivers, nail guns, and other heavy tools. They could ban baseball bats, hockey sticks, golf clubs, mops, brooms, bricks, lumber, chainsaws, free weights, tire irons, pens and pencils, because we've all seen John Wick, and bans anything that can be misused to inflict serious harm, including Ford Escape SUVs.
You know, when you were reading that paragraph about him not being able to come up with the answer, all I could think of was the scene from My Cousin Vinny, where, what's her name, Marissa Tomei is really upset. And she's like, that's a BS question. And he's like, you can't answer it? She's like, I can't answer it because it's a BS question. Like, we need somebody that's got some good video editing skills and make that into a video with this guy.
Somebody with some good video editing skills. Like somebody that puts out like somebody that puts out edited YouTube videos every couple weeks. Yeah,
it's hysterical. Things that could cause harm. Free weights, tire irons, like really? This really is going after the tool and not the person. Like this really makes people not responsible for their actions. It makes the inanimate objects responsible for illegal activities. This is crazy talk.
Isn't that the way it has always been with the other side, though? It has always been, well, if we just get rid of the method of what they use, then they're all going to be transformed into good people.
It's crazy. I did listen to the Gun for Hire podcast this past week, and they were Anthony Calandro was talking with Scott Bach, and I'm sure this was some inspiration for John writing this article. But and I know in the article he's got some video of this guy answering questions. But when you hear him answer these questions, they're like, so where can they carry? And he gives a non-answer answer because, like Marissa Tomei, that's a BS question. You can't ask that question because there is no answer. And it's great to hear him stammering through this.
There is an answer. The answer is nowhere.
That really is the answer. And I love that John points out that this guy is not qualified. Like, he probably didn't even write this bill. He has no idea what it is, and it really seems like he was just sent out there to take the arrows and take the heat for stuff, because he couldn't answer questions. They asked specific questions. He could not answer them, and I don't want to say I do not feel bad for the guy, but he has no idea what he's talking about. And it makes me think of one of my favorite podcasters has a game that he calls Stupid or Liar. And is the person stupid or are they liar? And you listen to this guy answer questions. You're like, is this guy just stupid or is he a liar?
Sometimes it's hard to. I can if they truly. Sometimes and I'm trying to. I cannot remember who it was, but the California legislator that came up with the shoulder thing that goes up. Obviously,
she was from New York. Carolyn McCarthy.
Okay, Carolyn.
Yes, Carolyn McCarthy.
She obviously doesn't know the first thing about firearms, yet she tries to legislate with relationship to firearms. I can label that as stupid.
It's I like to say that people that make gun laws don't know anything about guns. And honestly, when we hear politicians, we assume politicians know what they're talking about, and or at least we assume that they have people that could properly inform them. And they still are without a clue on things. And one of my things is this: if they're this wrong about our topic, what else are they wrong about? How far off base are they with everything else that they need to know? And I'm not trying to, I don't want to cut them slack because they're politicians, but come on, man, this is a big topic. This is something that people are concerned about.
Yeah. And this is something that affects people's lives and security directly. It's not something to play with or toy around with. It anyway. I want let's go on to the next story here real quick, and yet no we got some check-ins over on YouTube, and hey to everybody that's checking in.
Hi.
We've got gun websites. George Geller, Mike White have all checked in. Hey guys,
Nice.
but no substantive comments yet. I cannot talk today. Let's go on to our next story. White House press secretary Karine Jean-Pierre called for an assault weapons ban Monday in response to a St. Louis school shooting in which 2 people were killed. The shooting occurred at St. Louis Central Visual and Performing Arts School just after 9 a.m. The attacker, thought to be around 20, actually turned out to be 19, was quickly taken out by police. St. Louis Post-Dispatch indicated the call for an active shooter came in at 9:11 a.m. Shooter was shot 14 minutes later on the school's 3rd floor. This is directly from the White House press secretary, and this came out before the police had cleared the building entirely. There were still police on scene. Our hearts go out to everyone impacted by today's senseless violence, particularly those injured and killed, their families, as well as the first respondents. We need additional action to help the scourge of gun violence. Every day that the Senate fails to send an assault weapons ban to the president's desk or waits to take another or other common sense action is a day too late for our families and communities impacted by gun violence. I'm getting tired of them using the tragedy and of violence, and honestly, I want to compare this one a little bit. There were in this one I think there were 2 killed and a bunch injured. Let's compare this with Uvalde. With this one, from the time the call came in, it was 13 minutes later that the bad guy was dead. 4 minutes after the call came in, police were in the building. Uvalde, different story. It was over an hour.
Yeah, I'm doing a little digging here. It looks like he did have an AR-15 style rifle.
Yep.
And 600 rounds of ammo, and a note saying that I don't have any friends, I don't have any family. Yeah, so it sounds like a guy that's got that's battling with some either mental health issues or some depression. 19-year-old. I remember being 19 years old and 1,000 miles from anyone that I grew up with, and that was obviously my choice to go to college that way. But it can certainly be lonely when you're that far away from people. But getting back on point here, okay, so he had a rifle. So what?
It doesn't matter if he had a rifle, if he had a handgun, if he had a shotgun, if he had a 105 millimeter howitzer.
Right.
The weapon doesn't matter. It's just think if there would have been. This was a 4-minute from the time that the call came in until police entered the building. Just think if there would have been staff in the school that could have responded the minute the second that shot rang out. Possibly could have saved one of the or both of the lives that were lost.
Absolutely. There was, I know we talk about these incidents all the time, but I remember reading one incident that happened a number of years ago. A guy went into a school after hours. He wanted to shoot the librarian who was the coach for the speech team. because I don't know. I guess he wasn't able to be on the speech team or something. Went into the school after hours, headed to the library. There was a what do you call it? The resource officer was nearby. There was police was there, and the police said he was coming in looking for him, and the guy took his own life because the police were going to be there. If there was somebody there that just like this one, if there was somebody there already there that had a firearm and they knew that they were going to get shot, or at least they thought they were going to get shot, then maybe they would take themselves out without killing innocent people.
Yeah, and that's
I mean,
not
that's what
yeah, not only that example, but going back to the Clackamas Mall shooting in Oregon, the the bad guy there, the good guy never fired a shot, just drew his gun, drew a bead on the bad guy. Bad guy saw, oops, somebody's going to shoot at me, retreated back to a hallway and shot himself. That's not all that uncommon when somebody is going to go on a murder rampage, finds somebody's going to stop me. They stop themselves in a permanent way.
Yes, yeah. The I believe, if I remember correctly, it was the Aurora movie theater, the Batman movie theater shooting, where when the police got there, he stopped shooting, and I want to say that was the first time that the shooter was either wasn't killed by police and didn't kill himself.
That's the first one I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That was the first one where they did not. It wasn't suicide by police or suicide.
Let me get this one in. And this is my screw up, Michael. Michael on the YouTube site says, couldn't find this. It says 10:25. I'm always a day late and $1 short. I reuse titles on these. I just go in and change dates, and apparently I wasn't paying very close attention when I did that. Or I'm a day late and $1 short, one of the two. Because it is indeed the 26th. So that's my screw up, Michael.
Well, regardless, we're glad he's here.
Yes, absolutely. Spartan, and I knew this topic would kick off a lot of comments. Spartan 6, just think of what it might have happened if his teacher had been armed or a school police officer on campus. I love that. Yes. That was kind of the point I was driving to. It doesn't have to be a teacher. It could have been a custodian. It could have been the school principal, a superintendent, if there was a superintendent on site, or any of the school staff. It doesn't necessarily have to be a teacher. But yeah.
I went to a business networking meeting this morning for a friend of mine, and I get up and tell people, hey, I'm a gun instructor, and this is whatever, this is what I do. I had a woman come up to me and say, she's like, oh, I know you're a gun guy. If I was someplace and something bad happened, I would want someone like you to be there. And it really makes me think about this when we talk about school shootings and we hear stories about these. People that don't know anything about guns wish that somebody was there that had a gun. And I went back to my seat and started thinking about this, and I'm like, I'm not an expert shot. I don't think I could pull off. I know I couldn't pull off that 40-yard shot that the gentleman took in Indiana. But people are comforted knowing that there are people that have some training and people have a firearm, and they would like these people to be around. So it's a good idea to have some training, and it's a good idea to carry places. Maybe not necessarily to advertise that that's what you do, or that you're carrying, but people that don't have that mentality are, I think they're comforted knowing that there are people that are armed and people that are willing to step up.
Yeah. Well, Charlie, you and I went through the Mag 40 together. The last time I did a Mag 40, I did it as a student after my stroke. And you were at that one, as was Amanda Suffolcool. Robin was there.
Sandoval.
Yeah, Robin Sandoval. And several others were there. You and I shoot about the same. I think our scores were very close.
So my score, I hate bringing up this wound. My score was 286. Amanda's score was 287, but we both walked away from her target after Mass scored it. And there was one shot that he scored that wasn't like, it was 1 point away. So Amanda and I really got the same score, but Mass gave her one extra point and she took it. And then she, for 2 weeks, she didn't let me live that down.
Well, I want to say my score was in that neighborhood. I could go dig up my target, but I'm not going to right now. Mainly because I believe I might have outscored you both by a point or two. But anyway,
this is great. The guy that has a stroke outshoots the two other people that are instructors. I love it, man.
but
I think you were. It was right around. It was probably within 3 points, 3 or 4 points with all of us.
where I was trying to go with that, and I wasn't going to bring up the fact that I might have outshot you, and I'm not going to go because let's face it, it really doesn't matter that much. I'm not going to go dig up my target. So before my stroke, this has been 2 to 3 years ago, more than that now. I did an active shooter introduction course at the Firearms Academy of Seattle, and at that point, I knew exactly where I could make that shot. They stressed me over a 3-day course. I could find out where I could make that shot with two hands, where I could make the shot one-handed, off-handed, where I could make the shot if I was moving, if I wasn't moving, and where it was a absolute game changer for me. I knew exactly what I could do coming out of that course. And if you could find a course like that, anybody listening, anybody watching, please do that. It's a fundamental game changer. It will raise your confidence exponentially, and you'll know beyond the shadow of a doubt if you're in a situation if you can make that shot or not.
It sounds like a lot of. It sounds like a lot of fun, but it sounds like a lot of work. But it sounds like a lot of fun.
It was both. Yes, a lot of work and a lot of fun, and a lot of sore muscles that had to get.
Oh, sure.
I want to go off script, Charlie.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little. They had a debate last night, Fetterman and Oz in Pennsylvania, and I want to talk about Fetterman. And before I do, Gun Websites made a comment debating the reasoning of insane is a pitfall the antis have created. News focuses on the murder, not the actual reasons they chose what they do. Yeah, you're right on that, Pete. What I kind of want to go off on, this has been occupying my thoughts a lot today. Everybody seems to be Fetterman, the Democratic candidate for Senate in Pennsylvania, had a stroke this past spring and has freely disclosed that and went up in a debate against Mehmet Oz last night. He has, as I have after my stroke, communication issues. What I will say is this: I taking politics totally out, taking gun position totally out of the equation, as somebody that has suffered a stroke, knowing what I went through immediately after mine, what it's taken me to recover from mine. I don't know if in the first year after my stroke I would have been fit to serve in any public office, let alone a United States Senate seat. I don't know, as I sit here, the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. This is, May, June, July, September, October, 17 months after my stroke. I don't know now that my communication skills, particularly my writing and honestly my reading, are up to the ability to serve as a United States Senator, although a lower elected office, possibly. My concern is this, that the people behind Fetterman are pushing him just because he won the nomination. They do not want to lose that chance to get their grab at power, knowing that in his state he'll do whatever they tell him to do. In the first, honestly, year after my stroke, whatever my beautiful wife Susan told me to do, I just did because I knew she had my best interests at heart. My worry is that Fetterman is just doing what his wife tells him to do because he believes that she has his best interests in heart. She may or may not.
That is a very interesting take, for sure. For sure, and he probably needs time to recover. And I don't, it was earlier this year, whatever, 5 or 6 months ago. He probably needs more time to recover from than that. I've only seen him. I've only seen him on some social media things a couple times, and he doesn't look like a well person. Might be a good way to put it.
Yeah. Well, and each stroke affects each individual person differently. It depends on what part of the brain is affected. Mine affected my speech and some of my reading and writing comprehension, and a little tiny bit of my use of my left side of my left hand. But I cannot speak. I'm not a doctor. I cannot speak to his fitness for office. I'm just saying what I experienced after a stroke, and I am guessing mine. And mine was a relatively minor one. I do have serious questions about his ability to exercise the office of a senator of the United States. We got 5 minutes left. And I want to go off onto one more story, and the one I want to cover is there's a sheriff in Oregon that has concerns about a proposed law that is up for the ballot in November here in less than 2 weeks. This is off off Breitbart.com. Sheriff Phillips has two concerns. First is that permit requirement will make the exercise of the Second Amendment cost prohibitive for low-income voters in the state. He said, from an equity perspective, it's a barrier to people with lower incomes from legally possessing a firearm. It just adds one more expense. And then lower in the article, somebody wrote into a Portland paper. Quinn, a Portland resident who did not wish to give his last name, wrote the Mercury, given the undisputed bias of police against folks who are BIPOC, poor, part of the LGBTQ2SIA plus community, and or have leftist politics, Measure 114 would be a nightmare for all of these groups. We've discussed that Oregon Measure 114 before, Charlie. This is two great reasons why even the left should think that, man, this is just the wrong measure.
Yeah, Tom Knighton wrote an article about it, right?
This one wasn't a Tom Knighton article. This was
Okay.
This is just AWR Hawkins wrote this one.
AWR. Okay, because when I was reading Petrolino's article, something about this came up, and I said, "Ooh, you know what? I should click on that," and I just kind of cruised through that. And I don't know if John wrote it, but it says that Tom did. I am one of these people. Like, I don't care. It's weird saying that you don't care about stuff, but there are some things that just don't matter. And what matters is if you're a good person or a bad person. Your race and gender and religion and sexual preference, all of that stuff is none of my business. Unless we have some sort of intimate relationship. That stuff's none of my business. We do. This is true, but a lot of that stuff's none of my business. What I am concerned about though is when you talked about this course that you took out in Seattle. That sounds really cool. Sounds a little expensive. You know what I mean? And training can be expensive. So let's not make the barrier to start more difficult and more challenging. I've done a quick survey and did the math real quick a number of times. And in Massachusetts, when you go from, hey, I think I want to get a gun, to shooting your gun with your ammo and your safety gear at a club that you belong to, is an easy $800 to $1,000. That's just to go shoot one time. It's expensive to do all this.
And that's not to carry. That's just to buy and go through the process.
Right, you've got to spend $100 to $150 on a class. You got to spend $100 on a license. You've got to buy a gun after that. You can buy an inexpensive gun. An inexpensive gun is $300, right? If you want to get a Glock in Massachusetts, Glocks are $500 to $600 or $800 for a Glock. So now
they're cheaper in free America.
They are. I just saw something come through on AmmoLand. The AmmoLand email came through, and there was 40 Smith and Wesson Glocks for like $370. I'm like, ugh. But not that I'm necessarily a Glock guy. So, but anyway, so you're looking at $400 or $500 for a gun, $100 for a class, $150 for a class, $100 for a license. Now you're going to have to buy ammo. Now you're going to have to buy eye and ear protection, and you're going to have to join a sportsman's club, because there's only a few places in Massachusetts that are public ranges where you can go and rent time, and that's how much it costs. And that's it's going to be 3 months before you can start to exercise your constitutional right from, oh my gosh, I think I'd like to buy a gun, to having this opportunity. It's expensive. I became a gun instructor because I wanted to go shooting more often, and I did the whole cost, the break-even analysis, and said, hey, if I spend this much money, then I can eventually maybe make this much money back, so that I can, support my shooting habit by teaching classes. It's expensive to do this, and let's not make it more expensive for people that are for people that don't have a lot of money. And certainly going into the recession that we're looking at, and the price of everything going up. This is crazy. I've had my friends say, listen, have you changed the price of your gun classes? I'm like, no, I haven't. You should jack them up with the COVID price. Everything has gone up, except the price of some, the price I'm charging for gun classes.
Well, I just want $1,000 in Massachusetts for a lower priced handgun, and everything that goes with it, to be able to not carry, just have it. How long would it take a single mother to save up for that?
Right. Right. She's going to have to, it goes back to kind of, I think, what we were talking about before we went on air. If I spend this much money, if I give someone else, if I give someone $100 for 4 hours of time, I'm going to have to go someplace else and make $25 an hour on top of that, or I'm going to have to work an extra 4 hours so that I have the money that money to spend on something else. And it could take somebody quite some time. I've had people ask me if I would take payments on classes, and they're like, oh, hey, listen, this is what you charge for the class. I don't have a lot of extra money right now, but maybe in 5 or 6 months I'll call you back.
Yeah, what do you do?
So, yeah, exactly.
All right, man. Well, we've totally blown past time, but I mean that's okay. You and I always have great conversation when we're on together. On our way out the door, as I always do, what do you want to plug today, man?
I put a show out. What day is today? Wednesday. I put a show out yesterday with Lisa Ludwig, who runs a company on Long Island called She Trains You, and she is a hoot to be with. She is a lot of fun, and we got I think it's about a 45-minute show with Lisa Ludwig on YouTube. You can download the podcast of the show as well, and I'm actually looking at spending some time this next week to crank out another show for next Tuesday with somebody who might be running for office that we know. So I wanted to get this show out before she hits before election.
Yeah, very cool. George says, Charlie, you left out the cost of the gun safe.
That's because Charlie can't afford a gun safe. I don't know if I should say this or not. I keep my guns locked in small cases, or small-ish cases, or portable cases, and I keep them padlocked and put them in places and whatnot. So I don't have a big gun safe. But yeah, if you wanted a big gun safe, those are what, six. If you wanted one of the really big ones, those are 600 pounds and $3,000.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right. And if the government. Oh, go ahead.
I should have one of those. I admittedly I don't. I should. It's on the list, but.
Oh, totally. And here's the other thing. If the government says that they're going to mandate some sort of insurance for gun owners, they're going to be able to come in and say, that safe is not good enough. You can't get a stack gun case that comes in 6 pieces that you build on your own. You're going to have to spend $3,000 on a Liberty safe. And oh, by the way, if you can't do that, then you're not going to keep your guns up to our level, our definition of what a level of safe is. So you're not going to be able to own any guns.
Yeah, I could easily see them trying to do that. All right, man.
Absolutely. All right, listen, always a pleasure. Thank you very much.
You bet. Folks, that does it for today. Please do tune in tomorrow, 5 p.m. Central Time. Tomorrow is... my brain isn't working quite well right now. Matt Mallory is going to be our commentator tomorrow. It's his day. Come back, join us then. Until then, everybody, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.